this is Keiko. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, I'm a watercolor paint maker and artist based in Kona, Hawaii on the west coast of the Big Island. Today, I have a little bit of a different video for you, so I'm not back home in my studio, but I actually took a few days off last week and went to the other side of the Big Island, to the Volcano and Hilo area, to do some hiking and nature journaling. I want to say at this point that of course I'm aware that not for everybody on this planet the season is ideal now to go outside and nature journal. I do hope you still enjoy watching the video, even if where you're located the weather is not great for going outdoors right now. But maybe you have a botanical garden that you can go to with a greenhouse that's protected, where you can take your sketchbook with you and sketch some of the plants in there. And now I'm back on the road and I'm headed to a trail very close to the Volcanoes National Park that I can highly recommend if you ever come and visit here. It's called Kipuka puaulu. And a kipuka is a piece of land that was surrounded by an active lava flow, but not the whole piece of land got overrun by the lava. And it's usually an oasis for plants and birds. I've just arrived at the trailhead, the Kipuka puaulu trailhead, and parked my car. And I got really lucky because even though we're entering rainy season here in Hawaii, it's a beautiful sunny day, not too hot. So let's go on the trail. But before I take you to the trail, let me share with you which art supplies I took with me. I have my small Royal Talens Art Creations sketchbook. The paper is amazing. It can take quite a lot of mixed media and has a hard cover, so I don't need to worry about taking an extra board to draw on. Then I have a bunch of colored pencils, and I also brought brush pens. My favorite technique for when I'm on the go is to do a base layer with brush pens and then do details and shadows with colored pencils. Usually before I go on a trip, I look at the location that I want to go to, and then I kind of think about what colors I will find there. So I know I'm going on a nature trail. It's going to be a lot of greens, yellow, and red. It's what I'm expecting. So these are the according colors that I took. And I have this adorable little pouch made by the daughter of a friend of mine that can hold a few brush pens, colored pencils, and even the sketchbook, and has a zipper so everything is safe. To recap on the tips for what supplies to take a sketchbook that's a good size, not too big, not too small, and preferably a hardcover so you don't have to worry about taking anything extra or finding a hard surface to draw on. My other tip would be to think about the location you're going to and kind of think about the colors you're likely gonna see there. So in my case, greens and a few yellows and reds. Another tip would be to prep your background before you take off. So in this case, I took my watercolors that I didn't want to take on the trail because I didn't want to take water, etc. And I prepped the background with some colors that I expected to see on that day. That was actually a different day when I was headed to the tropical botanical garden that has a lot of very bright, exotic green, red, and pink flowers. This is the finished piece I made on that day in the botanical garden. But I also want to point out that I didn't finish, and then when I came back to the B&B where I stayed at, I added a lot more details and some names in Hawaiian for the different parts of the taro plant here, for example, and the date, etc. So you don't have to feel like you have to create a whole big masterpiece while you're out on the trail, out on the road, in the botanical garden. Just do what you can while you're out there and enjoy your surroundings. And then when you get back home, you can finish your page. So much for my tips on supplies that you take, but let's get back to the trail. And yeah, you can see me here hauling along a big tripod, and that's only because I knew I was going to film this for a vlog and I needed a tripod because I was by myself on that day. Which brings me to my first tip for nature sketching, other than the art supplies I already mentioned. Bring a friend, preferably one who also loves sketching. I usually feel very safe going out by myself here in Hawaii and going on a hike, but if you live in an area where you don't feel as safe, then bring a friend. Tip number 2, if you find yourself being intimidated by drawing the whole plant or tree, why not pay attention to the details and textures instead and make a few little sketches? Look at this. The tree just fell over the path, so they just cut a little hole in it. Or a big hole. It's a pretty big hole. This trail features quite a few amazing native and endemic species of Hawaii. Endemic just means that they grow in Hawaii and nowhere else. Here you can see the pukiawe berry, and even though they look yummy, they're not edible for humans, but the native Hawaiian nene goose loves them. Here you can see Hawaii's largest tree, the koa, with beautiful red wood. Here we have the hau kuahiwi. Hau is a type of hibiscus. Kuahiwi means on the mountain. And here we have kopiko ula. Kopiko is also a word used for coffee, but this is, even though it's related to the coffee plant, it is not really the coffee plant. And again, this is another plant endemic to Hawaii. The kupu-kupu fern is one of the many native ferns we have on Hawaii. It's kind of difficult to distinguish it from other ferns that were introduced from Asia, but it is very skinny. So the Asian variety just is a bit broader, and this one is more narrow. Another edible berry is the akala. Akala also means pink, by the way. This plant didn't have any fruit at this point, and even if it did have some, they kindly ask visitors on this trail to not pick any fruits or leaves. Up next is a very, very rare plant, the hole. There used to be 4 different varieties. There was one variety that was home to this island and this specific region, but unfortunately it's extinct. So this hole was brought over from the Haleakala area over in Maui. And I have never seen this plant before, and I didn't know they had it in this Kipuka. So I thought, especially looking at these fruit that the tree had, I thought this was the perfect opportunity for me to draw it because I've never drawn it before. So I set up camp here right by the plant because, as I mentioned earlier, you're not allowed to take any plant matter with you, which is something that I would normally do. I would take a few leaves with me and draw them at home. Tip number 3 is this specific technique. Unfortunately, I didn't record the beginning, where I just drew some very rough outlines with colored pencil, and now I'm coloring them in with a brush pen. I find this technique very easy to approach the blank page. You don't need a lot of supplies, and then you can go back in later and add details and texture with more brush pen or colored pencil. I also want to point out at this moment that for me, I'm not looking to draw very realistically or scientifically in my nature journal. It is really mostly about being out in nature and sketching rather than trying to be super exact. But of course, that depends on your personality, the way you want to do it. You can take just a sketchbook and a pencil and draw really, really detailed. Here you can see me go back in with brush pens to fill out the background. I kind of thought that the leaves just by themselves looked a bit boring, just for my personal taste, and I just wanted to add a pop of color to give the whole thing a bit more contrast. Tip number 4 is maybe a little bit silly, but honestly, look, the pen is empty. I didn't check it before I left. So just check your art supplies before you leave to make sure that they're okay. And here is the finished piece. I didn't finish it on the trail. I took my sketchbook back home and I did take a few photos. So this is tip number 5. I think we're at 5, right? So make sure you take photos of especially the details you know that you want to draw later when you come back home, so you have them at your disposal. And especially if you want to draw some more of the same plant in the future, it's good to have some photo references. You can see me fill in a few interesting tidbits about the plant itself. For example, the bark and the stems of this tree were used in ancient Hawaii to dye fabric a bright yellow. I hope you enjoyed today's video and vlog. Please let me know in the comments if this is something you'd like to see more of in the future, or if you'd rather have me show you art tutorials and art supply reviews. Thanks so much for watching. Happy creating and aloha!